So let's speak now to Rewat Deonandan. He's an associate professor and epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa. Good morning, Rewat.
Good morning.
When you think that a COVID vaccine has gone from concept to approval in under a year, and now we are seeing the first people in the UK getting their jabs, I mean, what goes through your mind?
I'm thankful for the miracle that is science, and also thankful for the public will and political will that went into making this possible. So a lot of people did a lot of hard work to speed up the pathway to make this possible. It's an astounding achievement.
The medical director of the National Health Service England, a fellow named Professor Stephen Powis, said today felt like the beginning of the end. How does it feel to you?
It does to me as well. Now, it is the light at the end of the tunnel, but as I've been saying, the tunnel is still long and dark, and we shouldn't get out of our car and race to the end because we got a lot of work to do still. The next couple of months in Canada are going to be pretty bad in terms of COVID, and it's going to take months for a vaccine to be fully penetrated into our society and to achieve sufficient protection so that we can go back to some semblance of normal. So we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves, but yes, take this as definite cause for celebration.
What are you particularly going to be watching for as the UK rolls out its vaccine?
You know, some things that they're doing I did not anticipate because I'm not as imaginative as I thought. I didn't think about having to conceal the delivery, for example, for fear of tampering. That's a big one to me. And I'm really watching carefully to see how they keep track of everything. As an epidemiologist, I'm fairly data obsessed, and I want to know how they're making sure that everyone knows which formulation they got so they get the second dose from the same formulation. You can't get the Moderna shot from someone who got the Pfizer shot the first time. And how are they keeping track of who got it and where they got it so that we know how close we are to herd immunity? And as well, I hope they have an adverse reaction surveillance system because that's going to be important for communicating to the public who are hesitant about receiving a vaccine they're not sure about. All these things are important, and information data is key to allowing us to navigate the vicissitudes and problems that we encounter.
You might have heard Paul there say that the idea of a vaccine passport did not go over well in the UK because of concerns for privacy. Is there a better way, do you think? I mean, do you have any objections to a vaccine passport here?
Oh, I definitely see why some people would object to it, because it's seen as the entryway to compulsory vaccination. That's problematic in many ways. There's nothing preventing us from linking it to our health cards, so there's a record of who got a vaccination. It's important medically to know if you're vaccinated. And I know some airlines like Qantas, for example, are saying you can't fly unless you have proof of vaccination. So how are they going to enforce it? And if you do have a vaccine passport, it's going to be forged pretty quickly. It's going to be great demand for that kind of forged document. My major concern is, can we keep track of it for medical purposes and less so for social purposes?
What kinds of challenges do you think? I mean, it's interesting to look at the UK, right? Everybody's kind of saying, well, they're the guinea pigs here. But what kind of challenges do you think that Canada is going to face that will be unique to Canada?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Well, we're a much bigger country physically, so getting into remote areas is going to be even more challenging. And with the cold chain issues with the Pfizer vaccine, that's extraordinarily expensive, probably. And getting those refrigeration units to those important areas is going to be strange and interesting. How do you communicate as well? So how do you let people know it's their turn to be inoculated, especially in remote areas? How do you get the word out that we're going to be in your town on this day and you need to get to the vaccination center and so forth? And if you miss someone who happens to not be in the town on that day, do you come back to them for a second round? So I'm concerned that some people might fall through the cracks because of communication issues and because of remoteness. But we have people thinking about this, and this is why we have these simulation exercises, which I think are so interesting and clever, that we're taking the time to go through these simulation desks and to game out the system before doing it for real.
Retired General Rick Hillier, who's leading the vaccine rollout in this province, said that because they don't know how stable the vaccine will be in transit, that there's a chance that they won't be able to bring it into long-term care homes to vaccinate elderly residents. How concerning is that?
Yeah, I read about that, and I was a little surprised to hear that. It is concerning, but it just might mean you have to move the long-term care residents to a central location. And that's another logistical issue, but they can manage that. So you set up a vaccination clinic at a hospital, and then you just transport the people there for a day, vaccinate them all, and transport them back again.
What if the province can only vaccinate long-term care workers and caregivers to start with? I mean, would that be effective, do you think?
It's something. It's not ideal. Remember, during the first wave, one of the ways in which long-term care residents were being infected were that the workers were serving as vectors. So if we can take them out of the picture, we reduce transmission in that population, but it's not the best way. And I think everyone's first priority here is get it into the arms of long-term care residents.
You said that we have a long, dark tunnel ahead of us before we can see the light, especially coming into the holiday season. I mean, yesterday, Ontario saw its highest COVID case count. If the numbers continue getting worse, what challenge do you think that could pose for the vaccine rollout?
Wow, interesting question. I think it makes it easier in some ways. I think people will be more, in demand of the vaccine and be a little less hesitancy. But at the same time, it complicates how we distribute it. I've been using the forest fire analogy. There's a fire raging across the country. You have some water. You don't know when you're getting more water. How do you use the water? Do you throw it equitably across the entire forest, or where the forest burns most brightly? So if the disease is raging in some parts of the province, do we use all of our vaccine there? Do we use it in our most vulnerable demographic across the entire province, or just focus on just the hot zone areas? It brings up more logistical questions, and I'm glad I'm not the one making that decision.
Okay. Well, it was good of you to talk to us, as always, this morning. Thanks very much, Ray Watt.
Thanks for having me.
That's Ray Watt Deonand, and he's an associate professor and an epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa.